This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Tyler Wells on the show. He is a veteran software engineer, entrepreneur, co-founder, and CTO of BrainGrid AI, which we're going to be talking a lot about today. Anyway, with all that being said, Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Pleasure to be here.
So tell the audience a little bit about your background in technology and software engineering and how you got into AI and what is it that you do over at BrainGrid.
Sure, sounds good. So I've been, at this for a long time, probably 25 plus years. Everything from, small companies up to a large company like Microsoft and everything kind of in between. So started my career, well over, like I said, 25 years ago, started off in aerospace, believe it or not, and then moved to Northern California and just that kind of started my journey, I would say, from there. And, been building software, leading teams, spent a bunch of time at places like Skype and Twilio, small stint at Microsoft. I was just due to an acquisition and left Twilio in 2021 and now on my second company that I've started. Same co-founder. So both of us are ex-Twilio folks and been working together for better part of 15 years now and just having a really good time and really, kind of marveling at where AI is going and how it's completely changing everything at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's like a couple of different camps of people that are out there. I noticed there's one camp that says AI is going to take everybody's jobs and we should be fearful of it. And then there's other people that are like, oh man, now's the time, that I can take my idea that I have to market much faster, much easier, and can be basically a solo entrepreneur where before I would have to hire, a bunch of people. Where do you lie in this whole?
I mean, I think, based on what I'm doing now, I mean, squarely in the second camp and a lot of what we're building at BrainGrid is to enable people to realize those dreams of something that they've wanted to build forever, but haven't been able to. And so, BrainGrid essentially allows people, domain experts, anyone that has an idea to come in and use our platform to create the specifications and or just build what it is that's in their head and build it the right way using AI.
So what makes BrainGrid different when it comes to your approach to things? Like I know you guys focus a lot on the product side. So how is BrainGrid different than just going out to ChatGPT and start tossing in prompts?
Yeah, so you go to ChatGPT to start, tossing in prompts, you're going to get something, but it's more in the general sense, right? So ChatGPT is designed for sort of like general intelligence, and you can ask it a couple questions here and there. You can steer some conversations, but we've taken sort of the collective experience of both myself and my co-founders and poured that into our agents specifically for the focus of what is the best way to build software with AI? How can you leverage the most out of those agents and get sort of the best return on your value? And what we've seen work the best to kind of keep them on track, to keep them building what it is that you want, you start with the specifications. AI is great today at writing software. It's getting better and better and better. The models are getting amazing. But it still doesn't, it can't read your mind. It can't read your thoughts. It doesn't have the understanding of like, here's what I've been thinking about that I want to get built. And so working with BrainGrid and the platform and our agents, you can give it something, as easy as like, hey, I want to build an application for managing my, my kid's school schedule or something like that. Cause you decided the ones that are out there don't make sense. You want to build your own. And what our agent's going to do is literally have a conversation with you back and forth, and it's going to play sort of that product manager / tech lead, ask you a bunch of questions and make sure that it fully understands what it is that you're trying to build. Let's talk about edge cases, different things of that nature, flesh all that out. Then it's going to turn it into a set of specifications, and and those are requirements, and then those requirements can then be fed into something like Claude or Gemini or anything else like that to then be built to what it is that you want.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that makes perfect sense. So basically, you guys are serving that whole product manager, the tech lead role through AI. So agents are going to kind of run that piece. How should let's say I'm interested in becoming an entrepreneur. I have this, what I think is a great idea, and I want to get started. What's the process of getting started and jumping on board?
Yeah, so it's I think first you have to ask yourself is, how comfortable are you with something like a Claude Code or
Mhm.
Gemini? Are you sort of like, hey, I can get into the terminal and I know my way around and that's not a problem? Or is it like I have no idea and I need something else to do most everything for me? And so there's kind of two options that you get now with BrainGrid. We actually just ended up launching a big upgrade to our platform earlier this week where traditionally you'd come in, you'd say, okay, I've got Claude Code, I'm set up and I can work my way around that. So you'd sit down with BrainGrid, you'd create a new project, you'd probably connect if you've got a GitHub, you can connect your GitHub to that. So that way we can read the context out of there and ground the agent in what it is you're trying to build. Or if it's greenfield, you can have us create a brand new repo for you. We'll manage that for you. And then you tell it what you want to build. And once you've told it what you want to build, we're going to build out essentially an entire roadmap of how to get the coding agents to achieve that goal of building that product that you want. And you can then take that roadmap and its sets of requirements and everything else like that. And then you can automatically feed that using our MCP or CLI directly into Claude, and Claude will interact with our platform. It'll pull the requirements down. It'll do all the builds. It'll sync its tasks back in there. So you end up getting this nice system of record as Claude is doing all the implementation. And you get through all of those, and boom, you should have some software that's doing what you want. The other path is, you can come in now if you've got something relatively simple you want to build. You don't need Claude. You don't have to do any of that. You can give it like a simple idea. Hey, I need a new landing page for a restaurant that I'm launching in Austin in fall of 26. Here's what it is. Here's a couple things like that, and we'll just build that for you. So we'll spin up our builder. The builder agent will we'll create some specifications in the back, feed that into our builder agent. It'll run all the implementation, everything else like that, and get you to a point where you can actually view it. You can see everything that it's built. You can make changes to it. And then you can publish it right and have a URL.
Man, that sounds awesome. So before you had BrainGrid, what were some of the challenges or some of the mistakes that people make when they try to go out and let's say they sign up for Claude Code, they want to start, building sites. And one of the things that I've experienced a lot is when I build a tool or a product, it's never quite there. It gets like 80% or 60% there, and then some features starting to break, and then I may say, "Oh, this piece is broken, fix it." It's like, "Oh, yes, you're right. Let me try this," and now it broke something else, but it did fix that piece. Why is that happening, and where does BrainGrid come in to solve some of those problems?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to context, right? Like the agents are designed to write code, and they're designed to write code based upon the context where the input or the prompt, whatever you want to call it, to you give it that prompt and it's going to go on. It's going to say, okay, fine. I'm going to use my training data, whatever I've been trained upon, and I'm just going to implement that thing.
Mhm.
And that's it. I mean, it's sort of like on a mission, and it's not really going to do much else. It's not going to necessarily think through edge cases. It's not going to think about, what are the downstream effects of that, or what are the knock-on effects? How is that going to affect everything else? And what we try to do at BrainGrid is to take all of that and use as much context that's available, especially if you've already got some code that's working or anything else like that. Look at that code, figure out, okay, what is actually going to happen if we make this change? Are there sort of additional ramifications? Where do we actually need to make this change? And we're going to build out a plan that can then be given to Claude, through the creation of that specification. Because it all comes down to context, right? Like
Mhm.
you give it, a 5 or 6 word prompt and expect a miracle, like you're not going to get it. It's not going to happen. And so, yeah, I saw something the other day where in the beginning everything was the talk about prompt engineering, and now it's context. It's ensuring that agent has as much context as possible, so it can understand what it is that you're trying to actually accomplish or build.
Yeah, yeah. I think back to when I was an undergrad in college, 30 years ago, and they were teaching us pseudocode, like in our first, early days of before we got into C++ and the other programming languages. I feel like you could take that pseudocode would be a really good starting point for a lot of these
these applications when you're talking about architecting out the back end and writing the specs.
Yeah, and again, I mean, our agents are gonna do a lot of that stuff, right?
Mhm.
They're gonna help you work through the interfaces. They're gonna help you work through the architecture. They're gonna try to stay out of the implementation itself, but they're gonna try to provide enough specification around what it is you're trying to accomplish, so that way it keeps the agent on track and it doesn't keep the agent guessing or making assumptions. Because, like, you come in with a, hey, I want to change the, from this being a single select to some sort of a drop down. Okay, well, where does that data come for that drop down? Well,
Mhm.
that's got to come all the way from the database. Well, how am I going to get down to that database? Well, okay, we've got to now figure all that stuff out. And we've found that having that specification before you even let Claude or anything else write a line of code gives it an opportunity to sort of reason about it, for you to understand it, for you to sort of flesh that out in its entirety, including edge cases and everything else like that. Think through rate limiting, think, all that sort of stuff, and then get that into Claude and just allow it to go.
Yeah, that brings me up to that reminds me of a situation back when I was running. I used to manage a team of software engineers, and we had a user one time that came up and said, "Hey, can you make this free form field a drop down so people only select certain things we wanted?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, easy, piece of cake." And then we thought about, well, what about all the ones that have already been entered? All the other pieces of data and where those line up, and how do you go back fixing that? And we have, like, hundreds of thousands of records now that have to be, accounted for one way or another. How do you go about doing that? If you just pre-populated, well, what's in the database, now you have, thousands of drop downs instead of, cleaning that up. So that would be a great example of how your agent could figure that out and say, hey, what about this? And how do you fix this? Or do you want me to go and adjust these?
Yeah, and it's going to ask you those types of questions, right? Like the types of questions as you're sitting there, like, hey, I want to change this to a drop down. Okay. Um, how many items do you expect in that drop down? What do you want to do if we overflow that drop down? Is the API it's coming from, does it have paging? Kind of all those sort of things. We will help the user think through, ask questions where it makes sense, so we can write the best possible specification in order for you to get the best outcome as it starts to do the implementation.
So as people are starting to use these coding tools, what are the most common mistakes that you see people make?
I mean, I think it's a couple of things. It's first and foremost not providing enough context. You're just not giving enough details. You're giving it very little and expecting a ton in return, and it's going to try to do its best, but you're going to be you're going to be disappointed with the results. And then I think the other thing is not treating it for what it is, right? So I see a lot of people will get to a point and they're like, well, I'm not really quite sure what that's doing, or okay, it says I need Supabase, and what does that mean? And I don't know where to go from here. And I'm like, You've got an agent right there with, all the information in the world, not only for what it's been trained on, but it can also web search. Ask it." Like, I think people need to kind of treat their agents as, like, these are not deterministic things. It's not like, hey, I can do this one thing and I'm done. It's going to do what you ask it, and then you can ask it for more. You could say, like, all right, you said I need Supabase. Well, what is Supabase? How do I get an account set up? Walk me through step by step as if I'm never done this before, so I can do this. And I'm watching people, they do that. Once they realize that, hey, well, I can just ask it. Yeah, you can just ask it, and it's going to walk you through it. I mean, speak to as if it's like, you have that sort of, trusted colleague sitting right next to you. And you can ask it for information, you get that information back, and then you can walk through it and go set yourself up super basic if you've never done it before.
Yeah, I was at lunch with a friend the other day. He was talking about AI. He's like, "Can you just give me a training course on AI?" I said, "Why don't you ask the AI to give you a training course?"
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, you can always start there.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I've kind of learned. One of the habits that I've gotten into now is when I'm trying to get a tool to make me like a document or do an analysis of something, I'll ask it to interview me with the right questions so that it can get to a 95% confidence level in creating this analysis. And that way, even if I don't think to add some context to it, it can ask me for that context before working.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think those are, great ways to use it. It's also, if you think about it, I mean, how often have you know, had it work on a task or anything like that? And it's like, to finish the task, like, all right, this is perfect. It's 100% to spec. It's fantastic. You're good to go. And you're like, am I good to go? Okay. And then, maybe you go out there and you kind of test it and it's like, no, it missed a whole bunch of things. And so what I've found up with a lot of times, what I'll do, especially if I'm doing something that might have security implications, it's going to get, very happy about what it's written. It's going to try to tell you like, this is fantastic. I've done everything perfect, and you ask it something like, you're right. Let me go do this, and whatever. But I also like to use it against itself. So I have it take an adversarial approach on, against things. Like, I have it take an adversarial approach about it may have just, maybe I've got a requirement that I'm going through. Is that actually right? Like hit that hard, like take a red team approach against this and pick it apart. Hey, we said we secured this thing over here. Is it really secured? Like validate it, like actually have it go and actually try to attack that endpoint and then prove that what the work was done is actually, true and valid. And those are all things that you should be doing with your agents. It's not just like hey, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you a single shot, hope you implement it great, deploy it to prod, move on to the next thing. It's like, it's got way more value than just, a little bit of code output.
Yeah, absolutely. I think pitting it against one another so that you have both sides of the argument are kind of an important task that people need to do for sure. What advice would you have to software engineers that are out there that are starting to play around with AI agents and realizing that like, wow, I can code like 100 times faster using some of these than I could before? What advice would you have to them, for what's next in their career?
Yeah, I mean, just get really good at the tools. Get good at the tools and figure out how. I mean, you're. It's a force multiplier, right? You're trying to scale yourself. You're trying to figure out how can I take. You've been doing this 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, whatever it is. It's how can I make everything that I do better by thinking through approaches with the agent, by getting the agent to run more testing, to do more validation, and then scale that out from a single agent to 2 agents to 4 agents to, however many you can run without driving yourself nuts. And then, make that repeatability and come up with a process that is going to allow you to repeatedly, take in requirements, take in specifications, execute them, test them, ensure they're valid, rinse and repeat, and just keep going.
Yeah, I like that. One of the things that I've tried to do to make, I guess, responses more repeatable is to create like an architecture guideline of what I want all things to be built as, and I always say like refer to this as as you're building these as so that way I don't have to reinvent all the specs. I can kind of have a staple that we go through.
Are you shoving those in your Claude MD or Agent MD?
Yes, I am. Claude, yeah.
Yeah, I actually read an interesting article, actually a write-up that was from the Claude folks. So if you remember not too long ago, there was a leak of the Claude code.
Yeah, I saw
think it was
that.
their source graph or something like that. And some folks had gone out there and really dug into it and everything else like that. And what I found that was interesting is actually the Claude AI folks came back and they talked about a lot of us are shoving a lot of those rules, sort of the Constitution and the Claude MD. And what they'd even said was like, it's going to do it about 80% of the time. It's not
Oh yeah.
100% of the time, which I thought was kind of interesting. And what they had said was, if you want to get to 100% on sort of enforcement of things like that, hooks are the way to go, because the hooks are getting executed outside of, that's the sort of, prompt space of Claude and Claude code. And they said that would, because it can make a decision. Like it's told that, yes, you need to use what's in the Claude MD, but it can still decide to not use that if it so chooses. And sometimes it does.
Well, that would explain some things.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. There was a whole blog post that, I kind of followed the trail on LinkedIn. Somebody was talking about that whole source code leak. And then it came to, Claude.ai. There's a blog post out there that talked about a lot of this. I found that to be pretty interesting.
Now, I have seen sometimes where Claude will do things differently and then tell me about why my specs were wrong, why I shouldn't have done it that way,
Yeah.
which also makes sense,
I mean, it's great. It's like you got this agent with all this information, access to so much information. And it's like, you put a spec together, from the product side, you're like, and it's got access to your source code, especially. This is where it gets really nice, is you're like, is this going to make sense? Like, go tear this thing apart and try to poke holes in it and tell me everything that's wrong with it, or tell me everything that's right with it. What's good, what's bad, and let's figure out the gaps.
Yeah, I was trying to use a certain JavaScript framework and it came back. It's like, no, don't use this. Use this instead. I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a very long discussion with it. I mean, this is quite a while ago, like the difference between jest and v-test. Like in early days, we saw the agents absolutely struggle writing jest tests. I mean, it was just a huge waste of tokens, just, continuously over and over and over, iterating, getting it wrong, getting it wrong, getting it wrong. And then we started moving over to V-Test, and it was like, wait a second, this is a lot better. And so I literally was like, why does it appear that you are so much better at V-Test as opposed to Jest? And it kind of thought for a little bit, comes back, and it's like, well, actually my training data, of course, again, this could be hallucinating. I have no idea, but it was, very certain that its training data was far better around V-Test and the supporting of V-Test and all of that as compared to Jest. Then it had a few other reasons in there, but I just found it interesting for it to be able to come back with that. And again, could just be telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah, could be, but yeah, it is interesting how.
Well, we then end up making the entire switch, and so we completely went away from Jest, and now everything's in V-Test, and I just don't see those issues anymore. So
yeah, no, I think that's a great way of adapting and learning. That's what we all need to be doing with these tools as they're changing, because they're changing so fast.
Yeah.
And just staying on top of it's one of the more challenging things. You mentioned that you guys had a big update recently. What does that update entail, and how can people expect to see things change?
Yeah, the big update. So previous to this version, you had to have something like a Claude Code or Codex or Gemini on your machine in order to actually do the implementation. So what you do is you do all your planning in BrainGrid. You would hopefully install our CLI or MCP. You'd hop over to, say, Claude in the terminal, and you would just basically tell it, build rec 256. And then Claude would pull that down. It would create the entire plan based upon that, and it would start implementing it. Well, in this new version now, and we're starting with, kind of smaller greenfield projects, you can just come in with an idea. You don't need Claude Code. You don't need anything else like that. You give it the idea. We'll create you a repo, a specification, and we'll spend up some compute and actually start building for you. So as it's building, you'll see a preview here on the side. You can watch it going through as it's building the entire requirement that it came up with. You can watch it change in real time. You can vibe with it. You can make new requirements. All that gets pushed and saved into that repo. And then when you're done and you think it's where you want it, you can deploy it, and that's going to go out and you're going to get a URL.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's an easier path to entry for a lot of solopreneurs that are trying to get out there and build products. Some people are still scared of CLI. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it also, our customers were telling us, we would see them in the conversations they'd have with our planning agents, and then they'd get to the point where it was all planned out, and they're like, all right, build this now. And the planning agent's like, I can't do that. That's not what I do. I can plan for you. I can make revisions to the plan. I can do designs for you, but I can't build it. And so we're like, you know what, we've got to launch this. And so, yeah, that early version, that first version came out, I think about 2 days ago. And, we can't handle everything yet. It's not a sort of general purpose, but if you're trying to build something with Next.js, TypeScript, that kind of, that standard stack, our agents will do a very good job. So they start off with a template that's, I would say at a very high level, comes with a design system, comes with full built-in logging. It's running the latest Next.js, TypeScript. It's got full V-test, biome, all the sort of professional level things you need that, every developer either has their own template they start with. But if you've never done this before, you don't know any of this stuff. So we try to give you a very good starting point and, let our builder agents turn on it and start doing the implementation.
Awesome. That sounds good. So if our listeners want to get started, how can they connect with you online? If they have questions, ask them things, or if they want to play around with BrainGrid and start building?
Yeah, so it's easy to find us, braingrid.ai. We've also we're on X. I'm on X. I think it's Tyler Wells on X. Definitely on LinkedIn. Easiest way to do that is just, sign up for an account, doesn't cost anything, and start playing, go build something.
Awesome. And
Build something or get your requirements set up. It's going to do one of the two things. So right now, if it's too complex, you come in, you're like, hey, I want to build a CRM for this. We're going to help you create the plan for that. If you say hey, I want to build a page, a website that's going to announce my new restaurant opening up or something, something a little bit simpler, doesn't necessarily require, database and everything else like that, you're going to hit our builder.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that sounds great. And I'll link that too in the show notes at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through. Tyler, thanks very much for coming on the show and telling us a little bit about the projects you're working on and helping us out. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it as well. Have a good one.
Yep.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to. Click on their links and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. And make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.